Good day, Bloomfield. I'm Phil Shank, your town manager, and we're here with our periodic program on Bloomfield events and happenings and whatnot. And I'm very happy to report that our new town manager, I'll be leaving in several weeks or a month or so, is here with us today, and I'd like to introduce Robert Smith to all of you. Robert is from Bisbee, Arizona, and I've asked him to attend today so that you can get a good feel for who he is and what he hopes to accomplish while he's here, and perhaps his first impressions of Bloomfield. Robert?
Good morning. Thanks for joining us. Appreciate your time today. It's been an interesting couple of weeks here getting started, and an incredible amount of information to assimilate. Beginning to get a feel for the community and beginning to really enjoy working with staff and meeting the council members and working on the various subcommittees. So it's been an exciting and information-filled couple of weeks.
Well, I know you've had some interesting opportunities to try to search out local housing. I think you've been through 3 or 4 alternatives and are now settled in town here somewhat. I guess your wife will be coming along shortly, or hopefully, I think, from your standpoint. So tell us, Robert, a little bit about your background and your involvement in municipal government and some of the other things in your career that our residents might want to know about.
Well, originally I was going to be a mathematician, and I met somebody that I wanted to marry, and my life changed, and we both went to grad school. I got a master's in urban and regional planning and a master's in public administration to be a city manager. Came out of graduate school and did that for a while, and then went into industry for a bit, and I've been back in public service for almost 10 years. And I was in Arizona, and Morgan, my wife, we've been married 31 years. She saw this job posting, and she said, "You have to apply for this job. This place is amazing." She's very familiar with Bloomfield and Hartford, and was very interested in us securing a job here, so that's how I came to apply.
Well, good. So tell us a little bit about Bisbee. Are there rattlesnakes in Bisbee, or?
Bisbee's an old mining town. It's actually one of the largest wealth-producing mines on the planet. They closed in 1974. Phelps Dodge closed that. Back in the day, it was more metropolitan than San Francisco.
Really?
Yeah, it was quite the center for the state of Arizona. There's a lot of firsts in Bisbee. Basically, the town is centered on the mine. It's in the middle of everything, and they have an incredible built fabric there and incredible history, and if you get the chance, you should visit. But yeah, they do have snakes, and pretty much everything there either has thorns or claws or is trying to kill you, so be careful if you go.
Well, it sounds like an interesting place. I think many of us that are brought up in the Northeast or New England region, we have our own issues and our own snakes and other things here too as well. So the country is obviously very diverse, and I know a lot of people seem to be retiring to Arizona, and particularly the Phoenix area and whatnot. Let me ask you a little bit about your first impressions of Bloomfield and perhaps of some of the activities that you're already involved in, Robert.
Well, the first thing that came across when I started doing research on Bloomfield was the sense of community, the care with which this community has sustained its quality of life and considers how development is going to happen. I like the environmental edge that I see here, where people are trying to take care of the built environment as well as their quality of life. I get a really strong sense that Bloomfield is maintaining a small town feel while they're dealing with some fairly metropolitan issues, and I think that's an incredibly difficult but important balance when it comes to quality of life. So I really like what I see in Bloomfield. It actually reminds me a lot of the small town I grew up in South Carolina. And so I do feel right at home, and I do feel comfortable helping staff in the town deal with the issues at hand. I'm impressed by the legacy that you're leaving behind, the financial stability, the stability in staff, the expertise that's wrapped up in the staff, the fact that you have good longevity here and stability. It all is kind of a testament to really good management. And I think that the town and the council are doing a great job of representing the citizens and moving the town forward. So I'm really excited about stepping into a role where something's not burning down or blowing up. It's nice not to have an emergency. So.
Well, we have our brush fires occasionally on different issues, but I think your analysis and overview is right where it should be and on target. It's a great community. It's been very supportive of me during my tenure here, and I know our residents and whatnot are very involved, interested, and participate. Certainly the activities that we have going on in the community are reflective of that activity of the residents and so forth. The recent opening of our new Human Services Center is a good example of the advocacy and participation of the community in furthering that caring attitude that you mentioned. We've expanded substantially, as you know, the area for the food bank and for some of our social and youth services programs. I know the staff over there, having moved from a 95,000 somewhat stressful environment with the old middle school, is very happy with the new building and is really looking to maximize its use going forward. I think that's reflective in some of the figures we've had for our summer youth programs and others. Just to remind everybody, there is the potential to add to that building at some point in the future should the town desire to do so. So perhaps, Robert, you could tell me a little bit about some of your planning activities and your credentials in the planning field and how you feel that may benefit Bloomfield.
Well, as a urban and regional planner, I've been involved in comprehensive plan updates, transportation improvement planning, planning infrastructure, and I kind of bounced in between working as a town manager and working for councils of government. And so working for a council of government, you've got somewhere around 30, maybe 40 municipalities that you're serving, and they're all in different phases of dealing with plans and projections and grant work. So I'm pretty well versed in how you create programs and create plans and affect improvements to the community. I've worked in councils of governments at 3 states, and they all focus on different things, but basically it's bringing outside dollars into your community to leverage your community's tax dollars that they've sent off to the state or the Fed. So trying to bring those dollars back and put them in the ground in terms of hardscape or infrastructure or development is a key part. And then balancing the quality of life issues and the impacts that development presents to the community. It's real easy to say, yes, we want jobs and yes, we want businesses, but how do you introduce that into your community without losing quality of life issues or having negative impacts that are associated with that development? So that balance is important.
Well, I think that's going to be very helpful to Bloomfield going forward. As you undoubtedly know already, the town is going to have to update its comprehensive plan of development here shortly. Connecticut statutes, everybody requires that each town have a comprehensive plan of development, and then it be updated every 10 years. Our last plan was prepared in 2012, and we're now going to be looking to update that over the next several years so that the process is completed in 2012. In addition, for those of you that may not be following some of these activities, the town has participated in the Complete Streets program, and we've had briefings recently on the final draft of that report. And certainly that's going to be integrated into the comprehensive plan of development, the town's capital improvement program every year that we have. And so I'm very happy to hear that you've got that type of experience, both in municipalities, but also on a regional basis. More and more, as you know, we're being asked to support regional initiatives and integrate our local plans and activities into those going on a regional level. I think in the economic development field, we have had some activity recently. The town council has approved, and we've implemented an expansion of the Economic Development Commission from 7 to 9 members. The town also has signed an abatement agreement with Cigna Corporation to assist in their complete overhaul of the Wild building, their main headquarters building. And we're going to have to get you out there to meet the Cigna people and get a tour of that building and see what those renovations are. We're on kind of a circuit of introducing Robert to businesses, organizations, committees, and so forth in Bloomfield. If any of you would like to have him come out and visit you, please feel free to call the town manager's office, and I'm sure he will fit you into the calendar and come out and visit you to get a little bit better feel for all of the activities going on in Bloomfield. So why did you pick, I'm very interested having a town and city management career that, I hate to say it, but it's approaching 50 years. How did you decide you wanted to get into that field? Was that an outgrowth of your planning background, or was it vice versa?
It was. You know, when I went to graduate school, right after we got married, we went there together. I didn't even know city managers existed. I had no idea. So I got involved in planning and started working on some adaptive reuse projects in the Blacksburg area, in the surrounding communities, just as projects, you know, you do as a student. And I got introduced to this whole administrative structure behind the planning office, and then larger, the administrative structure for the city. And I began to realize that a lot of times, a lot of time and effort and thought is put into creating a plan, and then it doesn't get implemented, or only pieces of it get implemented, or it has a life of its own, and sometimes it just sits on the shelf. So I really felt like that was a shame, because there's so much thought and public input that goes into those plans. And if it was possible to actually realize the plan, you could wind up with something really, really amazing. So it occurred to me after talking with people and understanding that process that it might be possible to affect things better from a city management position, where you were ensuring that the planning process had traction and was actually being used, and those policies were actually present on a daily basis in the decision-making and the documentation of the administration. So I learned about it in planning, and I got out of the planning degree, and Morgan wasn't finished yet with her architecture degree, and so I decided to jump right back in and get a public administration master's to be able to get me to the point where I could land in city management positions and maybe affect some positive movement there.
Well, that's very interesting, because that's exactly what needs to happen in most communities. I mean, you go through the planning process, and very often there's not as much enthusiasm for implementation, and particularly when you're related to the cost and whatnot, and change. I think many communities get comfortable with where they are, and sometimes the vision tends to fade for a variety of reasons. So from planning to implementation, that's an interesting transition, and one that I'm sure Bloomfield residents will be keeping an eye on as we go through the comprehensive plan update, the Complete Streets program, our Sustainability Connecticut program, and some of these other activities that we're undertaking that will really lead to a culmination in the comprehensive plan of development. and then into the capital improvement programs that we have, which are always an interesting exercise, too, of setting priorities with limited resources. So we'll move those along as well. So tell me a little bit, do you have any family other than yourself, or you've mentioned your wife, Morgan?
I do. My wife and I, we had 2 children. My son is grown. He's in Mesa. He works at the airport there. He just finished his MBA, and my daughter is back at school. She's finishing her last year of college right now. So I will finally get to go visit where she's at when she graduates this year. So I'm very excited about seeing her graduate, and she's going to school at St. Andrews in Scotland.
Oh, great.
And I can't wait to play golf there.
So what about the other member of your family? I understand you may have a 4-legged member?
Oh, yeah. We have a dog and a cat. When we were in graduate school, we got a cat out of the Hurricane Hugo. It came through, and our little kitten was abandoned, so we took in Mr. Friendly, and about 4 or 5 years later, my son was a toddler, and this kid came to the door. He had found a puppy by the side of the road, and he was like, "Is this your puppy? Somebody left him." And my son's like, "I want a puppy." So the cat raised the dog, and then as the dog got older, the cat got older, then the cat died, and the dog was lonely, so we had to go get a kitten, and the dog raised the kitten. And we have just kept that going, so we're on our 3rd set of one animal raising the other now. So it's, but yeah, we're moving with both the dog and the cat. So.
Well, I'm sure they'll find Bloomfield friendly, too.
Oh, yeah.
And you'll enjoy your walks with both of them. So what do you see as some of the priorities and things that Bloomfield either has on the shelf or underway or in the queue or whatnot, and how you feel you'd be doing with those going forward?
Well, I've really enjoyed getting to know staff, and I think one of the things I want to start doing is putting several of the staff leaders together and having them discuss things that are common to both or where they both overlap each other, to look and see if there's some creative thought about how we might tackle more. And so I want to start getting the department heads kind of out of their department and working with each other. I also want to take a look at our depreciation schedule. I want to take a look at our capital expenditure program. I want to take a look at our asset maintenance programs. Those are typically the kinds of things that you see drop off when financial austerity hits. You know, people stop funding those things. And honestly, we need to see where we stand with the life cycle of certain things and where that funding is at, and do we need to start putting some of that funding back towards, you know, when the useful life of that thing ticks up, will we have the money to replace that thing? So I'm going to dig into that a little bit.
Well, I think that that's an interesting concept. Most of us are operating on a year-to-year basis, depending upon the budget, and we haven't had the finances until recently, I think, to be able to undertake establishing funds to replace things like roofs and the artificial turf field at the high school and some of these other larger capital expenditures that you know are coming. And to be able to plan for those and to maybe even reserve some of the funding, or at least look at our debt structure as we move forward. I know there's been a lot of support for a library here in town, a renovated, expanded library, and the council has included some funding to rejuvenate the library building committee, or to at least get updated figures on the cost of the library project. We've been through 2 or 3 attempts and never gotten to the point of actually moving it to the community to vote on it. So that's something that's probably coming up that will be a major discussion point in next year's budget schedule and so forth. I know also on the capital improvement program, there's a lot of input that's going to be generated by the Complete Streets program on such things as the roundabouts in the center of town, which are in the planning stage with the Connecticut Department of Transportation. Also, the Metropolitan District Commission, I think, which supplies us with water and takes care of our sanitary waste, is another major project that we need to keep an eye on. It's over $3.5 million roughly in the town's budget, and they're under a number of consent orders with the federal government and the state government to ensure that sanitary waste doesn't make its way into the Connecticut River without being treated and so forth. So I think there are budgetary challenges coming forward. You certainly seem to have the skills, background, and tools that you need, and I think Bloomfield will be very supportive of the activities you're talking about undertaking and whatnot. So I want to thank you today for coming, and I'm sure that you'll be sitting where I am here in the future. As was pointed out by our technical representative here today, we have a new librarian in town who just started, and she, I'm sure, would be an excellent candidate for a future program.
Absolutely.
So thank you very much, Robert, and we appreciate your appearance. I want to very definitely give you a pat on the back for going through a very lengthy and arduous recruitment process. For those of you that have been part of that, I'm sure you will agree with me in saying that it's testimony to not only the council and the town, but to the candidates in particular, and Robert specifically, to make it through that process and become our new town manager here in Bloomfield. So good luck and thank you.
Thank you, Phil.
Well, we're back again. I'd like to continue with some town events that are going on, things that you might obviously participate in or you might not know about that we want to inform you of. I guess the first thing that is really coming up on November 5th is our local elections. And we always like to encourage turnout for these elections. We have a variety of positions that are open. You can go on to the Bloomfield website and check out exactly what positions are open and who's running for those positions, bloomfieldct.gov. And the election date again is November 5th. The polls are open from 6 a.m. to 8 p.m. And for those of you that may not be in town, you can today and going forward here file an application for an absentee ballots. The ballots are actually available 31 days prior to the election, but you can file an application to have a ballot sent to you if you're not going to be available on the 5th. For more information, and if you want more details on the whole election process and so forth, please feel free to call our town clerk's office. Marguerite Phillips and her staff will be happy to answer any of your questions. That phone number is 860-769-3507, 860-769-3507. Again, municipal elections on November 5th. Polls are open 6 a.m. to 8 p.m. and absentee ballot applications can be picked up at the town clerk's office here at the town hall in Bloomfield. There are a number of fall festivals that are going on in the area. I'm sure you've probably seen the signs out and so forth. Again, I urge you to attend, have some fun, enjoy the local produce and growings of the Bloomfield Farmers Market and others that are out there. Some other changes in town, our health district, the West Hartford Bloomfield Health District, Steve Hewlett, the longtime director, has indicated that he will be retiring. The board of directors has met and they will be starting shortly a recruitment process for a new Director of Health for the West Hartford Bloomfield Health District. In other Health District activities, a new chair has been elected, and that person is Matthew Hart. Matt is the town manager in West Hartford, and he will be taking over here as chair of the Board of Directors of the Health District shortly. I'm the vice chair, and as many of you know, I'll be retiring here shortly, and therefore the position of vice chair will also be available for the Health District, and they will be working on that. If you're interested in being appointed to the Health District at all, I think there's always some positions that may be available, or at least you can put your name and hat into the ring, so to speak. You can always call Marguerite Phillips again, our town clerk, at 860-769-3507. A couple of other activities. We were very pleased to learn that Asea Brown Boveri, ABB, a longtime Bloomfield business, will be relocating part of its electrical engineering and robotics programs to Bloomfield. Those will be coming from Plainville, Connecticut, and from several other locations, not only in Connecticut, but throughout the country. There'll be approximately 170 new jobs added to their workforce here in Bloomfield, and we want to welcome them and are glad to have them choosing Bloomfield to expand their activities here. The Cigna, I mentioned a little bit about the Cigna tax abatement process that we went through in my Bloomfield Town Hall Today program, but I think you should be aware that this is a major expansion, at least internally, for Cigna. They're looking at a $90 million investment in Bloomfield. We feel that approximately half of that will be taxable. The rest of it probably will not be taxable since it's maintenance activities, but we anticipate a substantial building permit process. The abatement is over 7 years, and it's for 50% of the 90 million, so it would be about 45 million of taxes or of building that will be taxed going forward. So we're very happy to have Cigna staying in Bloomfield and setting their vision on future expansion over the next 7 years. Another activity, we have a very ongoing and interesting program with our Economic Development Commission. They're looking at a number of different activities and so forth that they're sponsoring. As you may know, the town visits our business community probably 10 to 20 times a year, and we do have visits with these businesses to find out how they view Bloomfield and how we may be able to help them. In closing, I'd just like to say this will be my last Bloomfield Town Hall Today program. I want to thank all of you for your support during my tenure here in Bloomfield, and wish Bob or Robert Smith good luck in his future tenure here. And I hope to see you around town in our various restaurants and businesses and so forth. My wife and I will be staying in Bloomfield. We love the community, and we look forward to seeing you in another capacity. So thank you very much again for your support, commitment, and dedication over these past years.